How does CELDF's work operate inside as well as outside the system?
Thank you, Simon, and everyone else for being here. This is a great interface to be able to kind of have, it feels a bit like a kitchen table talk, if you will. A bit one way, but nonetheless, it's a good way to engage over these questions and discussion points. So yeah, working like within and without the system, there's communities really from East Coast to West Coast and every place in between that at some point in time has reached out to CELDF for assistance in essentially drafting what we call rights-based laws. So this term has been used a couple times this evening, and what that really represents is looking at things from a rights-based perspective versus a land use perspective. So these are around issues like the right to clean air, water, and soil, livable wages, shelter, the right to just be able to access food, non-privatized water for communities and ecosystems, all sorts of things, true sanctuary for all migrant inhabitants. As Simon mentioned, the healthy climate that can sustain human and ecosystem life. So if that sounds like it's something that functions within the system, it's not. So in this regard, a rights-based approach around these matters that affect all of us in the places where we live, work, and play, this is a mechanism of working outside the system. So looking at what we actually envision within our communities, what we envision for our communities, how we can protect the inhabitants within our communities, both human and natural. These are not questions that we're used to asking ourselves. And so it's a common discussion point when I talk with communities around, what is it that you actually envision within your community? And then what we really do is just kind of support and provide assistance to these communities to use the process of the current structure of municipal or county level lawmaking as a means to collectively and creatively raise awareness around how the status quo denies local decision-making authority, but also how these local rights-based laws can legalize the very things that the current structure of law and government actually denies your community. By denying authority to make real and binding decisions around. So on one hand, we work within the system using local lawmaking process to bring forth these rights-based laws, but in another sense, we work outside the system by tangibly working with communities to recognize that there's this process of withdrawing your consent to be governed by this illegitimate status quo system. And that process involves establishing new rights for people and ecosystems within a community. So there's this twofold thing that goes on somewhat simultaneously. It's sort of like using one system to undermine the other. So working outside the system to undermine the illegitimate aspects of the system as we understand it, of law and government. That also works at the state level. In New Hampshire, I've worked to run a state constitutional amendment 3 times now. So working with state level legislators and having this conversation around the right of local self-government and rights of nature proves to be an interesting experience, to be honest with you. So it's including this state level constitutional amendment effort to recognize the right of local self-government and rights of nature, which means that we're really using the existing structure within the state level to amend a state constitution that specifically enumerates inherent rights for people and ecosystems. And that winds up undermining the status quo. So it's really looking to, again, use that state level lawmaking process to implement and specifically enumerate inherent rights for people and ecosystems, which in that process then denies corporate interests the kind of power and authority that they currently hold over us by being equal in essence with the state. And we've talked about that with the regulatory process that both Chad and Tish have talked about, and Kai and Ben as well. this also comes into play with the legal system. So even the legal work that we do to assist communities in defending and enforcing their local rights-based laws involves working within the current judicial system, essentially to challenge the illegitimacy of legislating from the bench and breaching the sovereignty of the people to self-govern at the municipal level, which is the way that currently the legal system is structured. It's structured to deny justice. When I speak with communities here in the New England area, I talk about it very much as it's a system of just us. It's not a justice system. So it's really about protecting the status quo, which involves corporations and their power, as well as the state and its preemptive power.